which is this desk, and I thought that that would be easier. And I also got my other camera pointing at my face, so you can get dual monitor action if you want. But the main show is right in front of me here. So we're going to make some models, and I think a few of you have done this with me before, a few of you haven't, but it's always fun. It's always different. No matter how many times you do it, you make something new. So it can be done until the day you die, because that's how much one should be doing it if they're iterating on design. And we're going to make three models. And I always say, I'm not going to make like one nice, super fancy model, right? I'm going to make 3 quote unquote concept models. And, you know, they're not meant to be like a final idea. They're just meant to be a fun beginning of an idea, right? Like the nebulous kind of cloudy idea of an idea. So they're fast, and that's why I'm going to make 3. And I'm not going to spend an hour on each. I'm probably going to spend like 15 minutes or 20 minutes on each, right? So the barrier to entry is low. It's basically what I'm saying. So these are concept models. They happen first, not last. If you have a fancy model, that happens last. Concept models happen first. So first I'll just show you. So my setup, this is literally just like a folding table that I got at Target, so it doesn't really matter. But I did put some paper over it, and maybe you should too, newspaper or whatever. So I'm going to talk about 2 things before I get started. I'm going to talk about my tools, what tools I have, and obviously that is limited given what you have at your house, right? So I'm going to try and keep the tools pretty simple, something that everyone has. And the second thing I'll talk about is materials. So let's get into it. So tools. So the first kind of category of tools are cutting tools. Let's see if I move this here. So I have this pair of scissors that kind of hard to use. They're kind of construction-like scissors. They're not very fine. So I may not even use them, honestly. I have regular scissors, which are probably your best friend, right? Because probably everyone has scissors at home. So they're your best friend. What you might not have at home is a utility knife or cutting blade or something like this, which is, this is an Olfa knife. We have them at the studio, as you all know, but maybe your mom or your dad has a utility knife. Maybe your sister has a utility knife. They're also called box cutters. They come in a lot of different names, and they look a lot of different ways. But they're helpful because the blade is nice and small, as you all know, right? Like that, only the tip of that is small, or only the tip of that is the blade, so it's safe. If I were to use a kitchen knife, which I don't recommend, the blade is big, right? The amount of blade exposed is long. And the type of cutting that we would do is not conducive to a kitchen blade because you could cut yourself. So I wouldn't use a kitchen blade. Yeah, I wouldn't use a kitchen blade. I would just stick with scissors. And maybe you don't even need to use any cutting elements. That would be a cool model, frankly. And maybe one of the models we won't cut anything, and we'll just see how it goes. So that's cutting. And I also have a cutting board. You know, at the studio, we have like fancy cutting mats, you know, for like model making. This is a cutting board for like carrots and onions, right? But it will do the same thing. And the one thing I actually don't have in front of me, which I should, but whatever, because maybe you don't have it, is a straight edge to cut along. But that's kind of, I feel like that's kind of getting into the realm that maybe you don't have immediately available to you at home. So whatever, I'm not going to get it. The next category of tools is adhesive and tape, and I only have this stuff with me. So first, some tape. I got this blue masking tape. You guys all have seen this. I'm sure you have something like it. Maybe it's beige or white at home. And then I have some double-sided tape, because I don't even have, oh yeah, this is removable double-sided tape, because I don't even have any regular Scotch tape at home. So I'm limited in that way, but whatever. So I found these 2 tapes. I also have like duct tape and stuff like that, but I think it's too big and bulky. And the other type of adhesives I have just regular Elmer's glue. You all know what that is, and maybe you have some. And I also have some super glue. Both of these you can get at the grocery store. So maybe you can tell your mom or dad or sister or someone to pick you up one if you don't have it. Any grocery store will sell it, or Walgreens and CVS or whatever. I do have a glue gun, but I'm not going to use it just because I don't actually like glue guns that much. I think they're kind of messy, and maybe you don't have one. So I think a lot of homes probably don't have that. And then the final tool that I have, I gotta reach for it. Here it is. Final tool I have it in two forms, is scale figures. So these scale figures, the little plastic guys, you can buy on Amazon. I think this pack comes with like 50 and it was like $6 or something like that. So you could do that. And I happen to have some, so I may use them, I may not. Or you can print them out from the internet. And I made this piece of paper, and we can email it to you guys. Usually the people are the last thing you put in your model, so you probably don't need it right now. But we'll email it to you guys, and these are scale figures to a proper scale that I kind of found and altered so that we could print them. And you could print this out at home, and as you can see, it comes with like each one comes with like a little tab that you can cut out with your person, so you can kind of fold it and glue it to the base of whatever your model is. So the people are kind of, whether they're paper or plastic, they're kind of between material and tool. I'm not sure which one I would call them, material or tool. I'll put that away for a second. Okay. If you have a question about tools, just blurt it out. So the next thing I got a whole bunch of random materials. So I'm just going to kind of go through them somewhat quickly. The first thing, this is an obvious one, right? I got a couple assorted tube size. This one's from a toilet paper. This one is from paper towel. And this one is from aluminum foil. And I got like different sizes and different colors, which is kind of fun. And I think that will come in handy. Next thing I got a ton of chopsticks from maybe you got pho the other night, or maybe you got some fried rice, takeout style, and you have some chopsticks left over. I got a ton left over from hoarding chopsticks. Similar to that, I happen to also have, I found this in my kitchen drawer, some skewers. They're like, basically, they're pointy at one end and blunt at the other end. So yeah, I don't know. Those look pretty cool. What else do I got? A sponge. Why not, right? And I might not use all of these. I'm just showing you what I found in like an hour of digging. So I got a sponge. That may be fun. Plastic to-go containers. I'm sure you got some of these, and these are very cool, very wide-ranging in their utility. Similar to chopsticks, I got a ton of forks and spoons, also from takeout. Maybe you've been getting takeout, but you eat it at home, so you eat it with silverware as opposed to the plastic stuff that you get. That's pretty good model building material. I got some Q-tips. I got a ton of them, which is helpful for materials. I kind of meant to say that up front. When looking for materials, it helps if you can have a lot of something, right? Because like a lot of sticks or a lot of length or etc. Speaking of length, got some.
Hey, Logan.
Yo.
I just wanted to throw this out too. So the Logan has that container of Q-tips. Think about the Q-tips, but don't forget about the containers. Like, use everything and anything. So that box that the Q-tips came in has cardboard and plastic. Use as much of everything as you possibly can. Like the bag that the to-go food came in, as long as it's clean. So that's my shout out.
Yeah, speaking of containers, I showed you these round containers, which are really useful. I also have a couple containers, like like you're saying, Trish. They're clear. You know, one side is like super clear, like this side. I think that's the top. And the bottom is like dimpled. And I think that that dimpled texture is going to be very cool. Definitely want to use that. Another container that I have is a tea box. And what I like about the tea box is the inside. Maybe you can see the inside. Super cool pattern. And I'm looking to use that pattern. I think that's a cool pattern. Let's see what else I got. I have a bunch of plates. I may not use these, but they're disposable plates, right? So perhaps a material. What else do I got around here? I got this. I don't even know what this thing is. I think it's for knitting. I stole it from my partner. But it's like this plastic grid thing. I don't know, but it's cool. I'm going to try and use it. Let's see. I got some, what is it called, clothespins. And these are actually useful. I'm going to put one on the side to remind myself to use it because they're useful for clamping. If you don't want to hold something together, like you don't want to hold glue together forever, you know, you can maybe put one of these guys on. And let's see, what else do I got? Oh, I got some cotton balls. Those could be very groovy. Let's see, I think I got one more. I got some rubber bands. Oh, if I can reach them, here they are. Some rubber bands. What else do we got? That's about it. Yep, that's it. I got some cookie cutters for drawing circles, but I may not use those. Circular things tend to be helpful for tracing. And then finally, last but never least, I of course have an Amazon box. And I think that's actually, I got a couple boxes in here I've been saving up. I think that's actually the first thing I'm going to dig into. So 2 things about materials. Yeah, one, if you can find something that you have a lot of, you know, think of it. Actually, let me restate that. Either it's nice to have something that you have a lot of, like toothpicks, right? Or it's nice to have something that you think is really special, like this weird piece of whatever. I don't even know what this is, whatever this is. So think of it in that terms, like, is this thing uniquely special, or do I have a lot of this thing? So that's kind of what I was thinking of. And then the other thing about materials is try to limit, this may be a personal preference, but I would try and limit the use of like branding. I think it's, I don't know. Like I said, that may be personal preference. But I think it'd be nice if your models don't say, you know, like honey lemon throat comfort tea, you know what I mean? It'd be nice if they were like a cool pattern, like inside of this thing. But like I said, maybe that's a preference. I mean, I've actually seen some really cool architectural models that are just like literally thousands of brands on the surface. So that could be cool. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do, like I said, I'm making 3 models. And the first thing I'm going to do, as some people in my class know, is I'm going to make myself 3 faces because I want the models to be roughly the same size. And I want them to have a ground. So I'm just cutting up, you can't really see what I'm doing, but I'm cutting up this wrap of cardboard. You know, some architectural models don't have a ground, right? They're just kind of a beautiful thing that doesn't really have like a plane at the bottom. And that's cool. That's totally fine. I always think in terms of, I tend to think in terms of a ground. It kind of helps me think. Yeah. But again, even that's a personal preference. So it just goes to show you that like everything is a personal preference. And as long as you can find cool stuff around your home, which I'm sure you can, you can do it. I'm gonna try and do everything in the camera. So of course, you know, Amazon box, like useful for base, but also potentially, but also, you know, cardboard is amazing, and so much cardboard around these days. So going that route, building something out of cardboard, right? That, hell yeah. But I think we're going to stick to different means today. Okay, so I got my 3 bases, boom. So let's start first one. I'm gonna take a sip of water. Like I said, I think I'm just gonna go for it and use this weird piece of plastic grid thing that I found. I'm not sure what it is. And maybe, well, I'm trying to think of what else I want to use. Maybe I'll use, does anyone care what I use? Should I use something else? Does anyone have a preference of what I try and use? All right, if no one's got a preference, then I'm going to go for these skewers. And I think these skewers are kind of interesting because they're pointy at one end, and then they're blunt at the other end. And I think that pointiness may help me. So I think, and first I'm just going to like play around. Like, I'm not going to immediately start building my model because I think that's a little, maybe it may be a little stressful, but first I'm just going to play around. Like, I'm noticing that these pointy things like stick through this pretty well. They're like, they hold. So that's kind of cool. That's interesting to observe, right? Okay, so that's one thing. Another thing, these pointy things can probably go right through this piece of cardboard. Let's see if I can do that. Oh yeah, now we're talking. So now so these pointy things are clearly, they may be a pretty good structure. They may be pretty good structure. Anywho, so they go through my plastic thing, they go through my cardboard really easily. That's good news. This plastic thing is super bendable. I don't know what this is. I think it's a knitting thing or like a crochet, or I don't know, sewing thing. Anywho, but it's probably just like a piece of trash, frankly. It's probably like a piece of packaging. So think about your packaging. Anywho, so this is bendy. So I wonder, so I feel like it would be cool if I kind of just made like a weird undulating roof, maybe. And see, it doesn't want to stick to that form. So I'm like, so, you know, my first question is, okay, how do I take this flat plane that's kind of boring and make it into like a cool form? And it's not really wanting to stick, but remember what we discovered with these pointy things is maybe I'll try and stick it all together like that. See how that works. That's working pretty good, actually. See what I did there? Literally just making this up as I go. I'm going to cut off I think I'll cut off this pointy end so because I don't want my model to be sharp. I'm just going to snip that off. Careful there, I almost cut myself. Okay. So let's see, maybe I'll do that 2 or 3 more times. Probably actually only need to do it 1 more time. This seems pretty strong. I'm not going to be super precise. I'm just going to kind of go for it. Sorry, I'll try and keep my hands in. That seems pretty cool. All right, so there. So that's, honestly, I could be done right now. But I think I'm going to try and like hold it up a little bit. I'm going to try and hold it up. By the way, I did kind of cut myself a little bit on the scissors, so it just goes to show you, you got to be careful. So let's see, I'm going to poke through my cardboard again using these skewers. Again, you got to be careful. I think I'm going to poke through at kind of 4 corners because that's a pretty logical way to hold something up. I got 1 more here. And even it out a little bit. I may even grab a little bit of glue and just give a little bit of glue underneath it. So just kind of lock it in place a little bit. So I'm at the underside here. Maybe I'll just kind of apply just like a little glue puddle. It won't dry immediately, but it eventually will. And It'll be nice. I really don't need much. Glue goes a long way. And if I do use a lot, then it will drip. It probably will already drip everywhere. So I'm going to use my fingers to just kind of smudge it about so it doesn't drip all over my table. Glue likes to drip. All right, I got a little bit on my finger. I'm just going to wipe it there. Now I got this thing that could probably hold up this thing, but we'll see. Now this is the test, I guess. So let's see. I'll try and get this. I'll try the corner closest to you first. Kind of want to be a little bit, you know, it's not the strongest structure ever made, right? So I want to be nice to it. Just slowly kind of work it in there. Seems like I got connection on all four. Kind of like how the posts that I put down are kind of splaying out. That's actually kind of cool. That was unexpected, but it's pretty cool. I'm going to cut these, and this time I'm not going to cut my finger. Maybe, again, I don't really want them to be pointy because I don't want to. Actually, you know, they're too hard to cut. If something's too hard to cut, just don't cut it. I could add more, but honestly, I feel like I may be done. I'm looking around. I'm looking around my stuff, seeing if I got anything cool to add. I think, excuse me, I think actually one thing I may do, excuse me, is kind of operate on it a little bit, but I'm not sure how I want to operate. And when I say operate, I mean basically like cut it up. I'm not really sure how I want to do that yet. I'm just gonna, in the back here, I'm gonna kind of just give it a little snip and see how it kind of like rounded a corner. Maybe I'll turn it to you. Kind of like rounded a corner a little bit. Because the square with the waviness was bothering me. It was very square and very wavy at the same time. So I kind of want it to be either wavy or either square. So maybe I'll make it wavy. And I could remove the posts and place them in a different place, but I don't know. I don't think I really need to. Maybe I'll make a cut piece out of the middle to accentuate waviness. Actually, maybe I'll try cutting down this way too and see what happens. Maybe I made a big kind of cut there. It looks like it kind of needs a couple more posts now that maybe not. So I made a big cut, maybe I'll make a kind of smaller cut here. You can see as I make these cuts, the material wants to return to flat. You see how this little tongue is now sticking out and like wants to be flat? That's kind of interesting. Wondering if I try and correct that by introducing another cross guy. So I'm gonna grab another skewer and go across, similar to how I did in the beginning. Very fragile at this point, so I want to be gentle. Oh, that's interesting how it like curls in. You see that? It's like curling in. It's kind of interesting. I'm finding that like twisting it while I push is helpful. Kind of like screwing it in there. Well, that's kind of interesting. And I can see that, I can see, you know, this little operation that I did is turning out to be actually the most interesting part of the model, in my opinion, because I can kind of curl it back in on itself. So that's kind of cool. So just that kind of weird operation that I did without really knowing why or what I was doing. Things starting to get a little flimsy, so maybe I'll kind of let it tell me what it wants. I think pulling these skewers back through. So now I have this kind of like this kind of weaving form going on, and yeah, I think different pushing and pulling. I may try and introduce another, like take this vertical out and introduce another vertical, because now, or maybe I'll just slide this one. That's good. I'll introduce another vertical. I'm just kind of thinking with my hands here. Seems a little bit more stable. See if I can cut this. There we go. Cut it without cutting myself that time. I think I'm done. So here's model number one. Let's see, what are we doing on time? So that took me pretty much exactly 20 minutes. That's pretty good, about 15 minutes. So this is model one. And then my favorite part of any model is putting people in it. So I'm gonna grab a couple of my people. And again, remember we'll email you guys some of these people that are, it's easy to print out and just glue, but since I'm not going to waste your time cutting that out, I'm just going to use these little guys that I got 50 of them for $6 on Amazon.
Nice.
And yeah, these are super cool. Maybe you guys are probably getting Amazon orders these days because no one wants to go outside. So consider telling your mom or dad or sister or whatever that you really, really want this, because they're cool and they're only $6.
Hey, Logan.
Yeah, go ahead.
You were kind of making it up as you went along, right?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, so you could probably have done that like 10 minutes, honestly. If you had the idea to begin with and you knew exactly what you were going to do, but obviously not barely anyone has the idea of what the model looks like. But
yeah, maybe.
Models. It's not exactly going to take like 30 hours. You could probably do it in like 10 minutes.
So there are a lot of models out there that are super fancy and take a very long time, right? But those aren't the models that that's not what we're doing today. And that is a skill and a craft and a science, et cetera, et cetera. But concept model making is something that anyone can do, and you learn through your hands, right? Like I could not have thought of this without playing with this goofy plastic thing that I found in the trash and putting a bunch of toothpicks through it. Like I could not have thought of this form in my head before just playing around with it.
And part of it too is the way Logan was approaching it. That's kind of the whole point of doing really early sketch models and concept models. You don't want to go into it saying, I'm going to build a model and it's going to be just like this, because part of it is like drawing. It's the discovery of testing things out and saying, oh, I didn't even think of this. Like Logan was originally thinking of using something else, and then he used the soft thing and was like, oh, wait, I can do this. So you kind of let the process be the design, right? You kind of loosen up. Don't go in with like, I'm going to make this thing. Be more open to letting, as Logan said, let the materials kind of take you where they might want to take you, because you will discover things that you hadn't even thought of.
Yeah, and I think I'm just trying to glue this last guy in and he's not cooperating. But yeah, it's yeah, just being open to, I think in that way, architecture, this is more the kind of artistic side of architecture, right? Like a painter, they might view a landscape and then go back to their studio and paint it from memory, but they're allowing their memory to be one with how they use the tool of paint, right? Or I'm not a painter, so that probably sounded idiotic, but it's like in that way it's more artistic. You're letting the material determine what it wants to do and what it can do, what are its limits and what are its potentials. So, and it's low stakes, right? Like it's not like I'm not being graded on this or anything. So I don't think so. It's all about exploring.
Can I say a word about scale also, Logan?
Yeah.
So the other really interesting thing about this part of the process is you're not committed to a scale, right? Once you start really building those beautiful models, you've worked out like how big it is, everything.
Yeah. Right.
But what's really interesting is what Logan has now designed. He's putting those figures in, so it's actually a pretty big structure. Right?
Yeah.
But he could take those figures out and he could do a figure that was twice as big as that.
Mm-hmm.
And it would still work in that design. It's just there's something different about it. So again, the other reason that you want to be kind of free and open is because what you thought was going to be a huge canopy structure that 30 people could be under may end up being a small single structure for just one person. And because he wasn't thinking about scale, he was thinking about form and shape and sort of what was interesting about it. He didn't get all bogged down. He didn't cancel things out because he was like, oh yeah, I can't do that because a person doesn't work in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
He opened himself to like way more options that he hasn't thought about. And scale is one of those things.
Yeah, and if you all want, you could download a scale person on the internet, and you could do it in Microsoft Word. You could do it in Google Docs. Enlarge and make smaller, enlarge and delarge a person, right, to the scale that you want, right? So if you wanted a person twice that big, you could just enlarge in Google Doc, copy paste into Google Docs. So the world, you can have any scale you want. So anywho, that's model number one. Tight. Let's move on. So, all right, now I got another base. Like I said, I'm kind of a base guy. Some people don't like the bases, but I kind of like having a base. The next thing let's see. So I'm gonna want to make it a little bit harder for myself. So the pointiness really helped me out on that one. So I'm not gonna do pointy. I'm not gonna do pointy again. Another thing that really helped me out was having just like a weird, cool thing that maybe you don't have. So it's like, Logan, but like I don't have that cool, weird plastic thing you found in the trash. So what am I supposed to do? So to all you people out there, I think the next one I'm going to do, I'm going to use these tubes. So let's see, I got paper towel, paper towel is the big one. Toilet paper is the small one. This one, which is quite a bit thicker, quite a bit stiffer. Maybe I can hold it up. You can see it's quite a bit thicker and stiffer, and this comes from aluminum foil. Aluminum foil could also be a pretty cool model making tool, right? So I think I may. So I'm thinking like I just right then when I was holding them like that, like I actually found that kind of intriguing. So actually, I think I'm gonna like this. This I kind of was inspired by, so I'm gonna go with that. There's a couple projects in the architecture class right now that kind of remind me of that too. No Ison's on the line, so maybe I'm channeling my inner Ison design. But all right, so I'm just gonna start cutting these up, and you can make them all exactly the same size if you want and measure it down to the absolute millimeter. Or you can not care like me and just go for it. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to not care. In fact, I like the fact that there's different sizes, there's different colors, there's different lengths. I actually prefer that. because frankly, that's how the world is. The world is full of lots of different things, and sometimes too much of the same thing can be scary. But anywho, so I'll put these down like that. They're kind of big, but whatever. I also got a smaller one here. I got a smaller tube. I'm not sure about cutting this. I'm trying to stay away from my fancy Olfa blade because I know some of you don't have that. So I'm trying to just use scissors. And remember, you got to be careful. Never cut like, don't cut like this, right? Like, don't like my hand right next to the scissors. Like, if I'm cutting this thing, it's not easy to cut. So I'm gonna hold it way back here and cut out here, so you can see the distance. And it's just be careful with yourselves, especially right now. You know, now is not the time you want to go to the emergency room, frankly. So definitely be careful with yourselves. Okay, so I got some tubes lined up. You know, these are kind of, I gotta say, these are pretty big. They're filling my base a little bit more than I want them to. So I'm gonna actually cut them in half. A couple in half. And then even on top of that, I think I'm going to cut this one. I kept this one a little bit longer. I think I'm going to cut it in half the other way, hot dog style or whatever, down the lengthwise. Cut it down this way. Now I got these semicircular pieces. Actually, that's kind of cool. So I'm going to start assembling with these guys. And arcs are fun, right? Arcs, you can find arc, you know, the arc form in architecture everywhere. So I love the arc form. It can be contemporary, it can be modern. So I'm gonna basically create, I don't know, I think I'm creating like a little series of passages. And similar to how I did to the plastic thing, I'm going to let one model inspire this model, and I'm going to kind of cut out pieces like this, because I thought that was kind of cool in the last model. Like I said, I'm going to let one model inspire the other and kind of cut out these slits. That's probably enough for now. So there you go. I got this thing down there, and maybe I'll kind of let that one be for a second, and I'll work on this one. Maybe this one has a different kind of slit. I have a bigger, taller, skinnier slit. Experimenting with different kinds of slits, right? So I think the kind of DNA of this model is emerging. It's arcs. It's kind of barrel vaults. I guess if I'm going to be like a fancy architect about it, I might as well call it a barrel vault. Kind of these barrel vaults with these like ad hoc slits. Making a lot of slits now. I'm actually digging the slit thing. See, I'm just slitting to my heart's desire. Kind of put that there. That's kind of cool. Kind of a landscape form. I don't know, I guess the other one was kind of a landscaping form too. A lot of really cool landscape architects. So landscape architecture, as you can probably understand, is it's not quite architecture, right? It's you go to different school, and you know, you're working on outside stuff, and there's a lot of really beautiful structures by landscape architects that are kind of outside, right? But they have kind of architectural scale to them. All right, so I got this little like series of like tubular vaults, which I think is pretty fun. And right now I have them parallel to the base, right? I have them parallel to the base. And just to get a little more dynamic on you, I think I'm going to orient them at a 45 to the base. I'm just going to, like, now I have these four things that I can arrange at my pleasure, right? So I'm just going to arrange them, and I'm kind of like, I thought, oh, that'd be cool if like some of the slits like line up a little bit. So if I was like in this side, maybe I could like easily walk over to that side. And then finally, I think one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make one cut. You know, this is a, maybe I'll just, yeah, I'm going to make a cut on up here at the top of my barrel vault. Just one cut, boom, one cut like that. And that allows me to slip and slide, basically put this guy into that guy. It's kind of hard to see with my crappy camera, but you see what I did there. I have this one. It has a slit in it, a slit down the middle, and it allows me to just intersect it. I don't know if I actually like that very much, but whatever. You know, what I'm realizing is because I made that slit in the middle, it wants to just be coplanar. Like it wants to just be like one toilet paper roll again. So that's a cool thing to learn. So what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to slit it to the side. So instead of making the slit in the middle, I'm going to make the slit to the side. And I'm going to make it a little smaller this time because I think that other one was a little too big. And similarly in this one, I'm going to make it just a little slit to the side. Doesn't need to be big. And now let's try intersecting it like that. I have a feeling it's going to be cool. Yeah, there we go. Now we're talking. Now we're getting somewhere. Because it's cardboard, I can kind of bend it and fold it to what I want it to do. And I want them to like touch the ground. So I'm going to bend it and fold it like that. In fact, this one's got the leg on this guy's a little too tall. So I'm just going to give him a little chop. Shorten his leg. It's looking pretty cool. So now we got barrel vaults with slits. They're interacting with each other. I got this one that I more or less kind of ruined because I put a slit in it, but no worries because I got a bunch more here. I'm going to cut this one down the middle. I'm going to introduce a couple slits. Let's see here. Maybe I'm going to try something different. I wonder if I kind of go like that or something. Yeah, maybe I'll just leave it like that. And I want to get a view down into that slit from overhead. So I'm going to give this guy a cut. My typical triangular slit cut. That's cool. Maybe I'll give this guy a tinier one down low, directly across from. Tight. All right, put that guy on there. I haven't glued anything down yet. I haven't committed, right? I haven't committed. I'm just kind of playing with things. Maybe I'll give it a turn so you can kind of see what I'm doing. You see how I'm kind of letting one rest upon the other. That's looking pretty cool. I wonder if I should add anything. Like, I don't even know. I think it's kind of cool as is. Does anyone think I should add anything? I don't think I'm going to add anything. I kind of like it as is. So I'm going to start gluing it down. So let's see, maybe I don't know if putting this guy on top is, maybe that's kind of silly. I don't know. Whatever, I'll decide that in a bit. So I'm going to kind of, maybe one tool that I didn't mention is a pen or pencil. Always handy to have a pen or pencil. So I'm just going to take a pen and I'm going to mark kind of generally where, really lightly, because I don't want a bunch of pen on my model. So I'm going to just like mark generally where this thing is with a couple dots. So I can put it back down where I want to go. So you can't even really see the dots, but I made a couple of dots. So kind of guides to where it goes. So I'm going to use this glue that you guys probably have at your house, just Elmer's glue. And whoa, it comes out. I really don't need anywhere close to that much. I'm just going to grab it with my finger there and kind of put it along the edge here. No reason not to touch Elmer's glue. Perfectly safe. I'm going to grab a little bit more for the other edge. In fact, my finger is such a good application tool. I'm just going to put it right on, directly onto my finger. kind of wipe the excess off on the table, whatever. That's why it's nice to put some newspaper down or whatever you got, so you can kind of just wipe and go. No, most of my pants have glue or pen on them, so pants also work. I'm just gonna kind of put that there. It feels like it wants some weight, like it's kind of springing back at me, so I'm gonna grab over here just this, there, just a weight to kind of keep it there for a second. See, where'd my other one go? Look, I got so many freaking tubes everywhere, I don't even know what's going on. So I think this one was over here and this one was over here, so maybe I'll even apply a little bit of glue. I'll do it right in the corner of your video here. A little bit of glue to the table itself because I have the paper down. And I'll take the feet of my little guy and just kind of go through the glue like that. That's kind of an easy application. Remove this tape, put this guy down here. No problem. That one doesn't really need any springy, doesn't have much springy to it, so I'm not too worried. I'm gonna take this guy that was kind of open like that, put some glue on his feet. Just set him up, boom.
Can you not do that? Thank you.
I keep wondering, is there like something else I want to do, like some other thing? But I don't know. It's kind of cool. That's part of the difficulty, is like choosing when to stop. I think I'm going to take some of these triangles that I cut out of the tubes and just like kind of put them there, just as like little extensions of the structure. Reduce, reuse, recycle, I guess. This is the ultimate reduce, reuse, recycle. I mean, this is, right? Like, I bet prize for whoever can find the coolest reuse of toilet paper rolls. I bet there's some really crazy stuff out there, actually. I'm just gonna take some more of these I'm just gonna use my triangles to kind of give it some more attitude. Let's see. Running out of spaces for my triangles. So that's kind of cool. I mean, the thing is, like, you know, it's kind of white at the moment because the glue hasn't dried, but Elmer's glue dries clear, so that's nice. But, you know, put a person there. I'll put a person in there. You take a cool picture with that when it's like shining in the sun with your iPhone or whatever you got, and with a little person in there, and it's going to be a cool picture. Like, you got to keep in mind, this is my computer is probably the worst camera you can find in the entire Best Buy store or whatever.
Well, the other thing is, if Logan took a photo of that, he could then take that photo and put it into like vector and create a whole thing around it with landscape and people and trees. You know, he could just go hog wild on that thing.
In fact, thanks for mentioning that, Trish. Yeah, that's a really good point. Like, taking your models and photoshopping them is such a strong way to design. I mean, seriously, like, if you build a cool model that like is impossible to model in SketchUp because it's like crazy geometry, kind of like this one that I made, right? Like, I can't model that in SketchUp. Like, this thing's crazy. Like, right? Like, some things are really difficult to draw and takes like years of learning architectural and geometry programs to draw things. So, but those things may be very easily modeled. Complex shapes that are difficult for computers to handle may prove to be very easy to make with little piece of trash. And also, thanks Trish for saying that, because you know, another cool material that I don't have any of right now is stuff that you find outside. And it does tend, you know, maybe if it's green, it goes brown after a while, but on the day you make it, it could look very cool. You know, grass and leaves, like super great textures. Whoops. I also have rocks I have a couple rocks in this planter that happens to be next to me. Rocks can be super cool. Gravel or sand. Sand is an incredible material that you can work with. And maybe you lay a bunch of sand down. You like glue a bunch of sand down, let it dry for an hour, and then come back to it and then make your model on top of your little bed of sand or something. Or maybe you
or
get
some
glue and put it. Or sandpaper. That's a good one.
And like really gravelly sandpaper is sort of beautiful to either wrap your structure in. Like imagine if Logan then started saying, you know what, I want this, my buildings, I want them all to have sort of a stone look. He could actually start putting, you could glue sand on, or you could wrap everything in sandpaper, different grades of sandpaper.
That's a cool idea.
I actually love, and you can use sandpaper to do texture too. So if he has a piece of smooth white paper, but he wants to put some texture in that, you can actually use a pencil or something to rub to get the texture from the sandpaper. So you can use things in a crazy number of ways.
Great. Yeah, great comment. You have some sandpaper. That's a good idea. I also, like, I have a little succulent, and maybe that happens to be sitting in front of me here. But you can find these, you take a 10-minute walk and you can find some succulents outside. So I just, I poked a hole similar to how I did in the other model, and I'm gonna grab a little, my favorite recipe, a little bit of super glue and a little bit Elmer's glue, patent pending. Smudge it onto the bottom of this succulent here. And just plunk it in that hole, because why not, right? Actually, this be nice to have tweezers right now, but whatever. I do have tweezers in my bathroom, but I'm not gonna do that. Super glue. I know super glue is cheating. Super glue is cheating, but sometimes it can be really helpful. So there, now I have a little tree. I'm gonna let that dry before I show it to you, because it's pretty feeling really fragile at the moment. Oh, there it goes. There we go. And then, as I said, my favorite thing to do is the last step, which is add people, because I like having people in my models. So dab them in a little bit of glue and just kind of stick them on. They're very kind of fragile and like annoying to work with, but once you kind of get them to stand up, it's great. They're great to have around. And the little paper ones are good too. It's funny how the human eye, like, you don't need much to imbue scale into something. So even if you use those little pieces of paper that we'll email to you guys, or maybe you just copy and paste one into a Word document and enlarge it to the size you want, cut it out and put it in your model. It can just be the simplest little like bump of a form. And you know, someone will, we have like a deep desire to put scale into scaleless things. And so it can even be the tiniest hint of scale, and it'll probably work. But I happen to have these cheap little guys from Amazon, so I'm gonna use them. I'm gonna put a little guy sitting at the top there. All right, so this is still in a pretty glued up, fragile state, but I'll show it to you guys. It's a pretty cool landscape form. You can put a little succulent on there, because why not? Got a guy sitting up there. Model 2, that took about 20 minutes. That was a little more, that was like 25 minutes. That was like 25 minutes. All right, so number 3. Does anyone have anything they want me to use? I showed you a bunch of stuff at the beginning. Is there something like, Logan, use that? I feel like I'm like a DJ. Like, what do you want me to play, yo? Okay, well, let's see. I'll have to use my imagination again, which is fine. A little cleanup, because I got pretty messy there.
Hey, one more thing, like as you're watching Logan, he's sort of pushing things to the side. but he's not throwing that stuff away, right?
Oh, right. Definitely not.
Everything, all the leftovers, yeah, all that stuff is gold.
Look at that, baby. That's cool.
Yeah. So even like those little things that you're snipping off, right? In that last model, he was like, oh, wait, I have little pieces that I snipped out. Yeah, those are like, they're already done for you. And you'll find a home for those things.
Right. Yeah. So get your little, this is such a good point, Trish. Like, just have a box that you keep in your bedroom that has a bunch of random crap. And like, maybe today you build a model, and then maybe a week from now you build another model. And then at the end of this pandemic, you'll have 10 models that are really cool. And as a family, right, as a family of models, they're very strong. You make just one of these models and it's cool and it's fun, and people are like, oh, that's cool, that's fun. But if you make 10 that are about the same size, same scale, there's something to that, a family of models. And we've all seen the Su Fujimoto example. And I just absolutely love those models because they are so playful and they're a family. Okay.
Well, also, you know, when Logan is talking about having one model versus 10, like when you create 10, that's a body of work.
Yeah.
Because if everybody in these two studios said, oh yeah, I'm going to go do 10 models, even if you guys were all using basically the same materials, they will all be so different. And so each person will have a body of work that will really be about their vision, their ideas. I mean, it's amazing how quickly our ideas come out when we're making models. And when you step back and look at those 10 models, you'll start to see, oh yeah, like Logan was really thinking about like these cutouts or triangles, or, you know, you'll start to see your brain was really working on some ideas. And when you see it in multiple places in different models, you'll start to see it as a body of work. It's kind of amazing and beautiful.
Yeah, you'll be surprised. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, thinking of your work as a body of work, you'd be surprised how if you make 10 things, there may be a style to those things, and you didn't even know that inside of you there was this like style, like you got a style to you, and you won't know that until you make a few things, and you're like, oh, like maybe that's my style. So that, yeah, I think that was one of the coolest things about going to architecture school, is finding my style through little models like this. So yeah, I think that's a really good point, Trish. Like a body of work, something will emerge, whether or not you intended to. Something will emerge. Okay, so the next thing, I think I'm going to try these chopsticks. I'm going to give them a shot because I got so many of them. I actually think, you know, I grabbed these ones from, I have like there's like two places I go to a lot. One gives me white ones, one gives me the red ones. But the red ones are actually a little bit more plain. They're just kind of simple wooden sticks, whereas these ones kind of have more like dimensionality to them. You know, they kind of taper more at the eating end, and they have this like rectangular thing at the upper end. I don't really like that. But so I don't know. I'm gonna use these other ones. That's why but it doesn't matter, right? I mean, you use what you have. And I'm also we'll see how this goes. But you know, this is like a dowel, right? Like this is like a piece of wood. And to cut this, it sure would be nice to have a bandsaw, right? But I don't have a bandsaw, so. And frankly, I don't know if I can cut. I mean, I just tried to cut those little skewers in the first model, and I like nicked myself. So I better be pretty careful because these are like twice as thick. I'm just gonna give it. I'm just like, before I even think about a model, I'm just gonna like see what I can do easily with these chopsticks. Okay, so actually they cut really easily. So I guess they're kind of soft wood, right? There's lots of different kinds of wood out there. Clearly, this is a softer wood. And again, I'll just do that again. Kind of, I'm not like, you know, getting in there all at once, like as hard as I can. I kind of give like a gentle little cut. I rotate, gentle little cut. And you can see, maybe I can get that right up to the camera. You can see that I'm kind of starting to make, really hard to see in my crappy camera, but I'm starting to kind of go around. I'm starting to make a kind of a line. So like little cuts at a time. and it's kind of a soft wood. So I do that a bit. I kind of keep rotating. I'm rotating as I'm kind of giving gentle cuts. And there, it kind of releases. You can see at the end, it looks like I kind of like almost like pinched it. So that's cool. So now I know that I can cut those fairly easily, not super easily, but fairly easily. So that's good to know. That's good to know. And I think for this model, I'm going to use two of my favorite things, which is wood and string. I'm going to use string. And there's a lot of different kinds of string out there. Maybe you have like a shoelace that you know, shoelaces are great because they're nice and thick and they actually have cool texture to them generally. Maybe you have some thread that someone in your house like sews with or something, right? Or maybe you have, what's another kind of string you might have? This string I think is from the kitchen for like tying up meat, even though I like literally never do that. But I think that's what this is like a butcher's twine, I think is what they call it. Butcher's twine. Okay, so so again, I'm not really sure what I'm doing yet, but I think what I want to do is I want to tie, and this model may take me slightly longer because tying takes a while. But I think I'm going to try tying, and in order to tie, I'm just going to give myself a little like indentation in this wood. I'm not going to cut it all the way. I'm just going to give myself a little indentation. Maybe I can show you that. So you see how let's see, there we go. So there it is. That little indentation in the wood that I made, that y'all can see there, that is going to help me immensely when I tie. And that's a little trick of the trade there. So I'm going to start tying. You can see on this one, I'm not really starting with the ground. Like I'm not, you know, on the other two, I kind of started thinking about how does this thing hit the ground? This time I'm not thinking about that at all. I'm thinking about something totally different, I guess. I'm thinking about tying. And each time I'm just gonna give it a little double knot, I guess. Doesn't need to be super tight. Maybe if I get frustrated with double knots, I'll go into a single knot. Single knot with a little bit of glue typically holds pretty well. So now what do I got here? I got this thing. I'm wondering how I can get this to kind of like stand up. Or if I can maybe I can bend the wood. I just realized that the wood kind of won't deal with some bends. That's kind of interesting. Actually, I'm gonna go bow and arrow style. That bend piqued my interest. Because it's kind of it's both a potential and a limitation of the material. So I'm gonna see, I made another slit at the other end of this. I'm gonna like go bow and arrow style for a second, see if I can kind of see what kind of a bend I can get. Oh, just broke right off. Let's try that again. I'm thinking the longer it is, probably the more bendy action I can get. So this is really just experimenting at this point. And see, it's good to know when I break it, right? So I just kind of figured out how far I can go. Maybe I'll put that one to the side and try a full size one.
So that's the other really interesting thing about working in model. You know, if you do a drawing, you don't have to, you can make it do anything, right? You can make it defy gravity. Really interesting thing about model making, even at this loose conceptual scale, is actually you start to learn about what materials can and cannot do. And it's very informative when you're designing something.
Yeah, wood does have limitations. So now I'm just like kind of testing. I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm just kind of testing the limitations of the wood. Some of these, okay, so I literally was just playing around thinking like, I don't know what I'm going to show these people. But I just actually, so I broke one of the sticks and I think I found my way out. I think I found what I'm about to do. So I broke one of the sticks, right? It kind of splintered, right? It kind of splintered when it broke. And that flat bit, when it splinters, it kind of splinters semicircularly so that there's like a flat bit where it's split and then of course the round outside. And that flat bit looks pretty helpful actually. So I'm going to break it a little bit more such that it's flat And yeah, I'm gonna break it a little bit more like that. Just kind of playing with the material now. And I still got this piece of string kind of tied to it. I think this one's about to get pretty wild, by the way. So I'm just looking at that, and I think, wouldn't that be cool if I was like walking under this canopy, and on one side it was these big, cool pieces of lumber or whatever, and on the left side it was like cool string coming down. Like, wouldn't that be a tight canopy? So I think what I'm gonna do, and so I'm gonna try, I'm gonna make one real fast and see how it goes. So let's see, I'm gonna, my concept is basically make a bunch of these kind of triangular shaped pieces of structure. And I'm gonna make a little slit in the side of the cardboard, operating on the ground, operating the ground plane. I'm gonna make a little slit in the cardboard. I'm gonna slip my string in there, just like that. Made a slit in the ground. My string in there. I'm gonna stand this up. I'm gonna pull the string tight. That's where I want it to be. Now I think I'm getting somewhere. That seems like it could be cool. That seems like it could be cool. Maybe a lot of work, but I'm pretty into it, so I may go for it. All right, so I'm gonna, let's see here. What's my next step? My next step is to glue this guy down. I'm gonna use my patent pending combination of super glue and white glue. Just a little bit of super glue and a little bit of white glue. That was too much white glue, whatever. I'm gonna glue this puppy down. Remember, white glue dries mostly clear, so I'm not super concerned about having white glue. Maybe I'll just grab the excess with my finger. But I'm honestly not too concerned. Doesn't need to be pretty. So now I got this thing, the string's a little loose, but I can pull it tighter if I want. And I need to be gentle. At this point, I need to be pretty gentle with this thing because it's still drying and it's not strong. That's kind of interesting. It's very one-dimensional. That's one thing I don't like about it. But I think if I can make a bunch of them, I may be onto something. So I'm gonna cut this string so I have a little bit of excess hanging out so I can tighten as needed. And I'm gonna make some more slits in my ground plane. I'm just lining up slits down my ground plane because I'm gonna insert some more string. I wonder if there's a way to, actually, I'm gonna take the string that I have in there and actually put it in the one adjacent so that it's not as planar, so that it has a little angle to it. Maybe you can see that in plan view. So it has a little bit of an angle to it, so it's not so planar. And maybe I'll do that for each one so that they're all kind of splayed in a similar way. All right, so now I'm gonna take that other end of the chopstick. I'm gonna kind of break it in the same way. In this kind of V pattern. I'm gonna cut a piece of string plenty big. I'm gonna tie it around my toothpick, or what is this thing, chopstick? I'm gonna single tie it because my patience is running out. And I'm just gonna, let's see, at the side here, I'm just gonna have a little puddle of glue that I can, when I single tie, I just single knot it because I'm an impatient person. I just kind of dip it into my little puddle of glue. And it may not be strong right away, but it will be strong eventually. I'll just smear the glue over it a little bit more. Dipped, and then I just put some glue on that. And I'll cut off the excess. Risky, but whatever. Risky to cut off the excess because it will untie quicker. I'm going to do it anyway. And then I'll use my patent pending combination of white glue and super glue. This time I got my puddle of glue all ready for me to go. So I'll kind of dip the flat end into my puddle of glue. Give it just a little bit of super glue. Doesn't need much at all. And I'll kind of set it right next to the other one, not too far. I decided I'll set it about the same distance that I made the slits. But that may be an option. You know, if I was really amped about this model and I were to make version 2, maybe I would play around with the spacing. So again, I gotta be gentle, gentle, gentle while I feed the string through the slit in the cardboard. All right, now we're starting to get to something spatial. So I got these 2 sticks that are kind of in tension with the ground plane. And underneath, I just got the string kind of hanging out. And I'll leave the string like that for now. So now I'm gonna roll. I got a concept, I'm gonna roll. So I'm gonna break my, let's see, what do I do here? I break this, I kind of break it here-ish. Let's see, how much, I'm kind of seeing how much length do I need. I'm gonna cut off the tapered bit. That makes it look like a toothpick. There we go. Let's see about how much. I think I'm just gonna go right in half. So again, I'm gonna break it in the same way that I broke the other one. Kind of broke in a different way. That's a bummer, but I think it's okay. I'm gonna kind of break it again maybe because we're working with the double break. Working with the double break. So this one doesn't have the flat bottom, but honestly, I think it's fine because I'm just gonna glue it down. So again, I got a third one. It's a different height. It doesn't look the same. It looks different, but that's fine. So I'm gonna, let's see, what was the first thing I do? I tie some string around it. So I'll give myself a little indentation, just a little indentation that I can tie string around. So remember our indentation. Subtle, but it does help you when you're tying string. I learned that when I was in school because I did a lot of string stuff in school. Having a little notch helps immensely. So I do my favorite part, my shaky hands. I'm not very good at tying things, but I like doing it anyway. It's kind of like masochist. So again, I'm going to single knot it because I'm impatient. Sorry, I keep going away from the camera. I'm going to single knot it because I'm impatient, and I'm going to just dab that in the glue. So the glue will dry around the single knot. Snip off the excess. Snip it off. Then, like before, I'm going to smear the kind of base in my glue puddle. So I think I want a little bit more glue because now I'm working with a rounded bottom because it broke differently. And I got a rounded bottom, so I think I'm going to up the glue factor. You know, I could also tape all of these down, right? Like I could do that. I'm kind of committed to glue at this point, so I'm going to keep doing it. I use just patent pending white glue and super glue combo. Just get that sucker down. The super glue, I gotta say, it's handy. It's handy, and you can find it at any grocery store. So I don't know if you noticed, but grocery stores are open. So maybe you can find someone in your household to buy you some super glue. It is like, I know everyone in the architecture class absolutely loves super glue. I remember one time last semester, I left class at like the second to last day just to buy you guys more super glue. That was pretty funny. Back when we could go places. Okay, so I got 3. I'm gonna go for 6. I'm gonna break this one. I'm getting a little faster now. Feeling better. Again, I'm just gonna make a little indent. Kind of like how they're different. They're kind of different sizes. They've all become different sizes, which is kind of cool, actually. I wonder if I can kind of get the sense that it's kind of growing from small to big or something. Wonder if I can kind of achieve that. I'm gonna tie this. Now this is, you know, you may find yourself making a lot of a component, right? Like I think this string and stick thing that I'm making, I would call it a component. And I'm making a lot of them. And you may find yourself making lots of components and then assembling them in a really cool way. Like this is just a piece of stick with a string on it. But when it's held in tension with the ground and when it's aligned with a bunch of his buddies, it starts to become a pretty cool architectural idea. I'm just gonna dip that in the glue. I think I need a little bit more glue. This one's a glue heavy one. And that's okay. And then patent pending white glue and super glue combo. Stick that guy down. I'm going to kind of hold it with my thumb while I fish the string through the slot in the cardboard. I like this model because, you know, the other two models, well, I guess the first model kind of used the ground plane in a way. This model kind of, you know, the ground plane is not a kind of, it's not a, it is a participant in the architecture, right? It's not an observer. It's not just a place for things to rest upon. It's actively in tension with the architecture, with the space. So I'm gonna keep going. Let's see. If this one will break the way I want to. No, of course not. See, now that it knows how I want it to break, it's not going to break like that. Oh, interesting. Actually, look at that. So I'm just learning that if I break it slowly, it does what I want it to do, and that's what I want it to do, like splinter like that. So that's a cool lesson. I wonder if I can do it again. In fact, I'm just gonna, that one was super successful, but I'm gonna give it another try to test my theory of the material. So I'm just gonna try and break it really slowly. Oh yeah, look at that, see how it splinters? That's pretty interesting. So if I break it fast, it just breaks in half. But if I break it slowly, I get that splinter action that I am after. And the reason I'm after that is because the flat side helps me glue it down. So that's pretty interesting. I just wrote that one. So that's a cool lesson. That's a cool lesson. I'm going to manipulate these a little bit more until I get what I want, which is a tube on one side and kind of a halvesy on the other side. And I'm going to break it right at that intersection, just enough to where it's attached. Give myself an indentation. Cut myself a piece of string. Okay. Kind of remind, this is like kind of Calatrava style. Does anyone know Calatrava? Calatrava is a Spanish architect known for some really crazy architecture, very expensive architecture.
So one of the projects, I don't think Nicole's here today, but she was talking about, for reference, some rolling doors. So I actually have some images of his factory doors.
Hi. Oh, very cool. Yeah, I've been watching.
My favorite projects by him.
Yeah, it's incredible stuff. I mean, it's architecture that looks like the skeleton of an animal or something.
And it moves.
Yeah, a lot of it does move. That's so cool. Yeah. I'm watching that show Westworld on HBO, and the latest season has a lot of Calatrava architecture in it because it's kind of, people think of it as future architecture. And that is probably far from the truth. By the time the future actually comes around, I think some of those buildings may look kind of I don't know. All right, so here's the current state of my model. Pretty interesting. I say, I did not think that it would go this way. Didn't think that this would happen. Didn't think any of these models would really happen like this, frankly. But I'm gonna add, as I said, I was going for 6, so I'm gonna do one more. Really big one. I think that's too big. Way too big. So I'm gonna cut that guy down using my gentle technique. Cut, rotating.
Sorry.
Make a little indent. Cut myself a piece of string. Got myself a piece of string here. Tie it around my indentation. Single knot because I'm lazy. Dip the single knot in glue. See, I really got an assembly line going now. I understand exactly what it takes to make one of these things. Remember the first time I made one, I was like, what am I doing? And now I'm like, oh, I know exactly what the material can do. I know exactly the limit I can take, exactly how to tie this thing, exactly how to break this thing, exactly how to apply glue to the thing, exactly where to hold it when I string the string through the ground plane. So you're learning even though you may not realize it. Okay, so that's kind of it. I dig it. I think it's weird. I think it's different. I think the only thing I don't like is kind of the this kind of zone where the sticks glue to the cardboard. So I think, wonder if there's a. I'm gonna introduce another material, and I'm gonna take my tea box. And I'm going after this awesome, what's it called, pattern inside the tea box. So I'm just going to open up this tea box. And you can see this pattern. I thought this pattern was really cool. So I'm just going to use that pattern. It looks really fun. And I'm gonna kind of cover. I think I'm gonna kind of cut it out such that I can kind of cover the part that I find a little ugly. So I'm gonna, let's see, kind of cut this part off. I'll cut these, or maybe I'll keep those flaps for now, but I'm gonna cut out the sides. And you know, there's a lot of material here, so I'll throw it out, right? It's a lot of stuff. Let's see here, I'm gonna kind of cut it here-ish. All right, so now I got this thing that's about the size that I want it to be. Yeah, I just kind of want to cover. It's almost like a little bench that I'm making by covering it. There's this little flap that's annoying me, so I'm going to cut off this thin little flap that's at the edge. Make the material do what you want it to do. So I actually don't need this other flap that I thought I would need, so I'm going to cut that off. So now I'm just left. In fact, I don't think I need any of these flaps. I really just need a surface. Kind of a stiff surface, which is exactly what this is. And I got my cool pattern that I think that I like. I'm going to leave it a little bit long right now, and I'll cut it off later. This glue job is pretty easy because it's not in tension or anything. So I'm just going to take my my Elmer's glue and just kind of put a bunch of glue on the tops of those sticks like that. It doesn't really matter because it's going to be covered. Just going to kind of place that directly over it, no problem. And to dry, similarly, I'm just going to kind of put something on top of it, something weighty. Actually, it wants to spring up quite a bit. So I'm just going to put some more weight on it, just finding things to weigh it down. While it's doing that, while it's drying, while it's all weighted down and drying, I'll put a couple people in. Where are my people? Here they are. And I'd say we're pretty close to done. Once this starts drying, we'll all be done. Who's got questions? Can anyone tell me something that they found in their house that they think is going to be cool? Does anyone have something in their mind that's like, oh man, I'm immediately going to go to my bathroom and grab that thing?
Paper clip.
Paper clip. Nice, dude. Yeah, metal is great. Yeah, I didn't have any metal stuff. Metal's a good one. Anyone else? Is anyone else thinking of something? They're like, oh man, this weird material. Totally gonna go for it.
So I've been collecting a lot of the bags that that frozen vegetables come in.
Nice.
When you turn them inside out, it almost will look like a tarp or something like that, or something to make a skin of a building in. So I have like a big pile of those. You have to clean them. Oh, and mouse traps.
Mouse traps, interesting.
Yeah, because it has a hinge already.
Oh yeah, hinges. That's cool. Yeah, moving stuff. Moving stuff. Love moving stuff. So I'm gonna cut my little cardboard dealio to shape. It's not really dry yet, but it doesn't matter. Actually, I can probably just remove it to cut it because it's not dry at all. Because we're at the end, around that time, I might as well do a couple dabs of super glue plus white glue, patent pending. And at the bottom, still got a bunch of loose string. I may tie that up, but I don't need to right now. I'm gonna kind of tighten it so that none of my, no, I left myself some extra string. I didn't tie it or anything, so I can kind of tighten it, make the string nice and straight. That's it, 3 models. Let's see, that took about, I think that took about an hour and a half, and I also gave a little intro to materials and stuff. So we'll say average 25 minutes a model. Remember we did model 1 of some random piece of trash that I found. It's got some people in it. Skewers. Model 2. I think model 2 might be my favorite actually. It's kind of the simplest in a way. And then model 3 is kind of string and tension one. There we go. I wonder if I can get them all in one shot. Got a real messy desk right now, but that's okay. It's kind of fun. There they are. There's my 3 models in one shot. Anyone have any questions? If you guys don't have questions, then I guess it's time to go.
Can I throw out a couple parting thoughts?
Yeah.
So one of the things, so basically Logan literally, like in a very short amount of time, just cranked out a whole bunch of things that he could present to the studio and talk about a lot of different ideas, right? There's scale and there's form and there's structure. I mean, really just chock full of ideas. And the reason that he could crank these things out that way is this really is how designers work. I think sometimes people think that designers are sort of very neat and tidy. It really isn't that way. That's just what it looks like when they, when you have to like present
Look
to
at
the
this.
client. Yeah,
We're a mess now. We're a
right.
mess.
And those models, literally, that is what people do in architecture school and in a studio, right? And Logan said something that was really important. Figuring out the geometry of what you think you might want to do it in a drawing is really hard, right? Because you're thinking about a three-dimensional thing and trying to say it in a two-dimensional format on a piece of paper.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really hard to figure out the geometry. You could spend hours and hours. Yeah, people do a lot of stuff in computer 3D modeling, but that's kind of even further down. So quickly, he could figure out these incredibly complicated and very complex shapes and forms, but he could do it like zoom, like super fast. So that he could basically come into the studio and say, all right, team, I've got 3 ideas. This is that, da, da, da. Let's all like break out into teams, and each team takes an idea and explore it in more detail. And everybody would get what he was talking about because his models are right there in front of everybody. That's kind of the power of models.
Yeah.
So even though Logan is using stuff that he's finding around the house because we're all stuck inside and we can't go to the art store and stuff, way better materials. Way, way better materials. Number one, because they're much more interesting. And number two, because he actually did some things that he wasn't even thinking of doing yet. And it was only because he found like, oh, this dope thing that is some weird perforated thing.
Right, exactly.
So it's really like, this is how designers do their jam.
Yep.
Like messy, sloppy, cranking a lot of stuff out.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, and it's I think yeah, and if you don't like it, you can start again.
Do another one.
You do
them
another
all,
one.
though. I'm an
Keep them
advocate
all.
for keeping them all. If you do something, you're like, oh, I hate that thing, put it aside. Don't shred it. Don't throw it away. Keep it. Because you may go back to it and say, oh, I like one thing about that model. Or somebody will look at it and be like, oh, have you ever thought of turning it upside down? And you'll be like, no, I never thought of that. That's brilliant. And now it's a totally different thing. Don't throw stuff away. That's a nice scale that you're working at too, Logan. I think that's manageable.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why I like cutting out just rectangles of cardboard to begin is because it kind of locks me in that zone.
Yeah.
Like sometimes it can be really hard, I think, to like to just like make something without reference, right? With no reference and no constraint. So I think just cutting out a square, a really kind of neutral shape, or maybe it's a circle. Circle is another very neutral shape. But yeah, giving yourself just like a canvas, right? A canvas to express an idea. And yeah, and it also, it gives some what's the word? Some continuity to what you're making, right? If they're all kind of the same size, they're all kind of the same scale. Yeah, it starts to add up to a body, as Trish said earlier, to a body of work. That can be really interesting.
Well,
and it's fun. So yeah, thanks a lot, Trish, for joining, and thanks for to all you all in the ID class for joining, and of course thanks to the architecture guys. Love the fact that you guys are here. We're all in it together, all just kind of chilling out, trying to make something cool together. So yeah, thanks for showing up, and that was fun.
Thank you, Logan. That was really cool. You got me wanting to make one at home myself. I'm like looking around my room like, what could I do?
Yeah, it's kind of
Thanks,
shocking
Jorge.
how much material we actually generate. I was kind of
There's
stunned
so much trash.
at how much material I had in a very short amount of time that I usually throw in the recycling or throw in the trash. It was
Right.
kind of
Yeah, so
embarrassing.
much trash.
Yeah.
So much trash.
So ID class, so Tuesday, Patrick has very kindly offered to do a quick SketchUp tutorial, and we'll start at 4. And Patrick, thank you for doing that. I really appreciate it.
Trish, what do you think of like us just the two classes being together? And you know, I think
I love that.
most of the kids in architecture know some SketchUp, but some of them, you know, they weren't here last semester or whatever. So, or just have forgotten. So I think actually, if all of us just kind of hang out together and ask questions and learn about the program for a while, it'd probably be really helpful.
I think that's a great idea.
If-
So Jorge, can you just send out the common studio space that we'll all meet in? Like if it's this one or however to do it, can you honcho that?
Yeah, I'll figure it out and I'll send a link to everybody.
Okay. Awesome. I love this.
Yeah, and for the architecture class, so yeah, we'll get a little, we'll get a review, courtesy of Patrick, of SketchUp on Tuesday with the ID class, and then we'll talk about your zine and coloring book submissions. So get a little extension work on that over the weekend if you want to clean it up or something. So we'll talk about that some more on Tuesday as well.
And I would encourage everybody, like, you know, if you have a half hour, crank out a model.
Yeah.
It's like crank something out, take a photo of it and then post it. So you can post it on the Miro boards. And, you know, again, we can start opening those up too. I can send invites so that everybody in Logan Studio can just roam around in those 3 boards. But
Yeah.
you know, just crank out a model. You know, it's like a half hour. Don't think too much. Don't think at all. Actually, honestly, it's an incredibly relaxing thing because
Yeah.
there's no wrong answer. It's just going to be what it's going to be.
Yeah. Put on some music or put on Twitch video game watching. I don't know what you guys watch anymore, but put on something or call your grandma or something and just go for it. And the last thing I wanted to say was, you know, we'll email out this document that I made with 1/4-inch scale figures, but I just wanted to show you. So I just cut one. That took me like literally 10 seconds. I just cut one. It has a little tab at the bottom, so I can easily glue it, and I can put it in my model. So, you know, I was using the little plastic things because I literally have like 100 of them and I need to use them. But this little, you know, if you have a printer at home, this works equally as well. So, so I'll send it to you, Trish, and you can send it to your class in architecture. I got your email, so I can send it to y'all as well.
Cool. I thank you very much, Logan, and thank you for everybody coming. I think you guys are rock star that you're coming and showing up and doing this thing and designing the process and designing the projects. It's really awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, you guys are great. We're all in it together. Okay, well, we'll see you all on Tuesday. Have a good weekend. Thanks so much for coming, and be safe.
All right, bye, you guys. Have a good weekend, okay?
See you, Trish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See you, everyone.